Welcome back, everybody, to Neutrality Studies and actually a collaboration with Benjamin Schoendorff from the Resistance is Fertile podcast. And we have a very special guest, one of the brains behind the brilliant Iranian Lego movies. We just call him Mr. Explosive Media. And with us is also Navid, who will be on standby to help with some translations if that is needed. But again, to our main guest, Mr. Explosive Media, welcome.
Hello, friends. We are happy to be in your podcast.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to this. You've been producing these wonderful Lego clips movies for the past, I would say, 2 months, and we would really like to know what a bit more about your motivation. So, can you tell us maybe first and foremost, why did you decide to communicate with the West through Lego movies?
That's a good question. Lego has a playful and childlike visual language. So when people watch something as serious as war through a cute, nostalgic format, it creates a strange emotional contradiction. That contradiction lowers the psychological defenses. And in modern media, the first few seconds are everything. Lego makes people stop scrolling instead of instantly rejecting the video. Uh, Another advantage is that Lego allows you to recreate real people in a stylized, charming way without chasing hyperrealism. With hyperrealistic visuals, audiences immediately start searching for flaws. But with Lego, the reaction becomes, wow, that actually looks like Lego Trump. And beyond all that, Lego carries childhood nostalgia for much of the Western audience. It feels familiar, safe, and emotionally accessible. Sometimes a toy can carry truth people would reject from a politician or a journalist.
Excellent. Um, May I ask how your team got together? Did you guys deliberately get together to produce these Lego videos, or were you actually already connected to one another and then you decided you could pool your resources to fight the US Israel empire on the narrative battlefield?
We were friends long before any of this started. For around 5 years, we worked together on media projects focused on domestic issues inside Iran. Uh, but without realizing it, those years prepared us for this moment. When the conflict started, uh, we were already capable of building a media front of our own country, a Lego resistant front. At first, our audience was entirely Iranian, but after the international reaction to our first video, we realized that battlefield was much larger than we thought. In many ways, we see ourselves as guerrillas of asymmetric media warfare, small teams, limited resources, but the ability to move fast and reach millions of people.
Wow, like this is a very interesting way of putting it, that also means that you started off thinking that your videos are meant just for the domestic audience, for Iranians, and that only later you thought, okay, we can also speak to the Americans, we can speak to the Europeans. So what is then the goal? What was the original goal of the videos, and what's the goal by now as we speak in May 2026?
I think truly successful media should speak for itself. The creators shouldn't need to stand beside their work explaining what it means. The work should already contain the message. But maybe the better question is, what does explosive media want from these Western audiences? The answer is simple. We want people to ask questions. We want people to think independently. We want people to look critically at their governments, their politicians, and the actions carried out in their name. Ask yourselves, uh, is this the future you were promised? Is endless instability what you work for whole lives to finance? Do you really want your taxes funding bombs that kill civilians and children across the world and, mean out of school? Uh, Unlike traditional propaganda systems, we're not trying to force beliefs into people's mind through manipulations. We present realities and we ask questions about those realities.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. And one thing I've noticed is US Israeli propaganda, Western propaganda in general, is very much based on the codes of sexualization and overwhelming violence. But your videos, you started explaining it a little bit, but they're way more subtle than this. If anything, you mock those codes without, amplifying them, and you really seem to appeal to higher values: dignity, self determination, respect, love of community, family, spirituality, and even common humanity. Do you think that plays a part in the near universal appeal of your videos?
It's a great question. This was never a calculated strategy. It comes naturally from our culture and identity. We come from a tradition where morality matters deeply, even toward opponents. Uh, our religious and cultural role models taught us that dignity and ethics should survive even in conflicts, even if in wars against enemies. There is an old story about the Prophet of Islam I want to tell you. During the early years of his mission in Mecca, a man used to throw ashes and garbages on him every time he passed through the street. One day, the man suddenly disappeared. After several days, the Prophet asked, "Where is our friend?" People told him the man had fallen ill. So the Prophet went to visit him. The man broke down in tears from shame and he became a Muslim, that story explains more about our culture than any political speech could. There is also a Persian proverb, um, what pours out of a jug is what was already inside it. So if our work reflects dignity, restraint, spirituality, or humanity, it is not because it was engineered it's in a meeting room. It's simply who we are, and that you said, it's simply who the Western medias and Western politicians are.
Hey, very brief intermission because I was recently banned from YouTube, and although I'm back, this can happen anytime again. So please consider subscribing not only here, but to my mailing list on Substack. That's pascalotta.substack.com. The link's going to be in the description below, and now back to the video. One of the interesting things about your videos, especially the ones where you recently talk directly to the US population, is that you show in these videos that you have a lot of understanding and knowledge about how US and to a good extent also European culture works, and some of the problems of the US population, because as you absolutely correctly show in your videos, the majority of the population doesn't want a war with Iran. They don't want that, and you're able to speak to that and speak to the problems. How come that you seem to have such an understanding of that Western culture, and do you think that there's a way of also inviting the Westerners to finally learn something about your culture, which I think the knowledge about it is lacking very badly?
Mm, maybe we are just a trailer, a small glimpse that encourages people to look beyond the headlines and discover a deeper, more human side of Iranian culture for themselves. Yeah.
And your knowledge about the West, where is it coming from?
We are educated in diverse, subjects in university, but people of Iran are uh, highly educated in, um, especially political, subjects. We read medias, we watch movies, we listen American songs. We know a lot about American culture.
Yeah. And maybe you already answered this a little bit, but as a student of psychological warfare and narrative warfare myself, when I watch your videos, you seem to know a lot about psychological and narrative warfare. Did some of you actually study the subject, or do you instinctively know how to present effective counter narratives?
Uh, our backgrounds are actually very diverse, not specifically in psychological warfare or propaganda studies. But Iranians have lived through decades of intense media pressure, sanctions, information wars, and competing narratives. In a strange way, that environment teaches people how media works. Maybe our understanding comes less from textbooks and more from lived experience.
And how do you go about with the planning for these videos? Because a lot of them are coming out. How do you come up with the right themes to work on? Because so many of them have been very great hits. What's your creative process?
We have a bank of idea, 24 hours a day and 7 days in a week. We write ideas. We think about them even when we are asleep.
Hmm.
We write them in a bank of ideas. When something happens, we choose one idea between them, and we are creative people. Iranians are creative people, so we write very fast, and we do it very fast, and we make it very fast. I don't. And many people ask us why you are so fast. I don't know why. We are Iranian. We are fast. I can say why we are fast.
Uh, Another element of your videos also that's very striking is the humor and the irony. It's present in almost every frame, and at the same time, it never feels mean. So you stay on. I don't know how you do it, but you stay on on the good side of irony that doesn't go into very dark sarcasm. Is this deliberate, or is this again a reflection of Iranian humor more generally?
Yeah, it's our culture. Being polite is a important thing in our culture. Even if you want to mock people, you have to be polite in our culture and in our country. So yeah, it's how we make jokes. We won't delete politeness in our mockery.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. Politeness in mockery.
Yeah.
So I mean, the goal is actually also, at least that's how I understand it. The goal is also to expose the duplicity, the kind of the this mean approach of the enemy, but without trying to make the enemy look like an animal. I mean, you don't do that. On the contrary, in your videos, you try to show the American people and the other people as somebody who is people, right? Other Lego people to connect to. So, what what is your thoughts about the importance of empathy in your video and in the entire approach to fight the narrative battle?
Uh, من فکر میکنم
in
که خیلی
media
مهمه که
work
در یک اثر
having the same
رسانه‌ای
hearts
ما
and
بتونیم که
feeling
مخاطب رو با
sympathy
خودمون همزد
with the
کنیم.
audience
ما
is
نمیخوایم که به
important,
مردم
and their
آمریکا توهین کنیم.
intention
ما
is
فقط داریم
not to
حقایق رو میگیم.
insult the audience, and they just want to narrate and depict and tell the truth.
That is so different, of course, from what the propaganda that the other side is putting out, which is really about humiliating and showing that they are the strongest. And I wonder, what is your target audience? You said at first it was Iran, and then America, or is it just America now, or is it broader? Because part of me believes that at least 4 billion people in the world watch your videos.
Our audience is anyone who still has the ability to think, question, and remain curious about the world. But naturally, because we are at war with USA, many of our stories revolve around America.
And are you afraid? Are you scared that people, the Americans, the Israelis, somebody might try to find out who you are and attack you and kill you?
No, we are waiting for them. Mr. Arashi said that. No, but honestly, not really. Many people have already sacrificed far more than us on real battlefields. These launchers, these air defense systems, they were killed. They are our martyrs, our heroes. This just happens to be our battlefield of media, legal resistance fronts. And if someone is powerful enough to fear a few Lego videos, that says more about them than about us. But if they ever target us, our digital blood will turn into a flood of zeros and ones, and it will expose them more than ever before. If one explosive media disappears, 1,000 others may appear the next day.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've watched previous interviews you gave before, and it's very clear to me that you are organic. You're not a government operation. You just, picked up this particular part in the narrative battle because you wanted to be part of defending your country. In a sense, you're part of the narrative mosaic defense of Iran. Is this correct?
Yeah, it's correct. It's a great name. Um, the walls of censorship are slowly cracking. Minds are detoxifying. The frozen minds created by decades of propaganda is beginning to melt. As I said, candles are appearing everywhere in this dark world. Yeah.
And so within what now, how this worked for you, are there now more people that are joining either your team or that you're seeing maybe also inside Iran who start creating similar things and try to communicate the way that you're doing? Because I think you found a very important way to crack through the shell of the West, of Europe and America, and directly speak to people. Do you think that others in Iran and others, or do you see others picking up what you found out and creating different versions of not just Lego movies, but maybe other ways of communicating with the West?
Yeah, it's right. It's correct. During these years, we have realized how deeply modern media systems can shape and numb entire populations. For decades, many people in the West were not encouraged to think more deeply about the consequences of global power. And entertainment became distraction. Distraction became passivity. And a society that stops questioning becomes easier to control. But the world is changing now, as you asked. Um, the world is changing now. People are waking up. The spell is weakening. maybe our work is only one small candle in a very dark room, but across the world, more and more candles are beginning to appear, and we think light will change everything one day.
Yes, and we are certainly seeing many imitators springing up. You call it the Lego Resistance Front, the LRF, but also I notice you've been promoting people working with other codes. So you have the Minions, you have the Toy Story videos, you have the Simpson videos. You also have people who do stop motion animations and all the rest of it. It's almost like we're seeing this kind of springing up of very many different forms of um, really mosaic narrative warfare, small groups, maybe people in their basement picking up this wonderful AI tool and using it for the good fight.
Yeah. As I said before, the walls of censorship are slowly cracking, and candles are appearing everywhere. This is something deeply grassroots, people speaking directly to people, people to people diplomacy beyond governments and beyond governments, people to people diplomacy beyond governments. So, in that sense, yeah, it resembles a kind of distributed narrative resistance, or as I said before, Lego Resistance Front, LRF, and thousands of small voices moving independently but in the same direction. Yeah.
And maybe on an abstract level, but your videos strike me as something very positive, and very, very actually peace oriented. So in a sense, yes, I see that this is resistance, but do you think of it as part of warfare or part of peace fair? Do you see it as part of fighting the fight or part of reestablishing the peace in the long run?
There is no peace without wars against enemies of humanity. When they are enemies of humanity, they will attack you. If you can't, you know, attack them, if you can defend yourself, if you can't defend humanity, they will attack you, they will attack you, they will attack you, they won't stop anywhere. And we are part of peace front, but we have to fight against enemies. It won't be a peace without war.
Mhm. One thing that is interesting to me is, of course, it's the American empire or the empire of arrogance, as I think people call it in Iran, that is attacking Iran and other peoples in West Asia. And there is some recent data that shows that over half the population in the US is not able to read above sixth grade level. So, of course, using very childish codes like Lego seems to be the ideal way of speaking to them. And at the same time, what's very striking to me is that you don't you use childish codes, but you speak about universal things and you don't actually dumb down. So, but you think that's part of how you're able to break the walls of propaganda in this population that is reputed to be the most propagandized in the world. I mean, the US population.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. AI storytelling is cheap, is fast, it's accessible and difficult to fully control for Westerns. A small team can now create narratives powerful enough to compete with Western propagandas. So yeah, maybe this is the beginning of a new era, narratement against propaganda. Narratement means narrative plus entertainment. You tell the truth, you entertain people, and you are against propaganda.
Do you then think that there is now a big need, not just for defense, to say like we need to counter the propaganda, but probably also a curiosity by now, in the West about Iran and what Iran actually looks like, that you can serve with these videos. Is that something that motivates you, or are you motivated mainly by saying no, we need to push our own information out?
بله ما خیلی به
They take
مخاطبمون
the
فکر میکنیم.
audience very
خیلی نظر
seriously
مخاطب
and
برامون
they
مهمه.
listen and
خیلی
read their
زیاد یعنی ما
feedback
بسیار
and
از
they implement
مخاطبانمون
that
ایده
feedback
میگیریم،
for their
بسیار
next videos.
بازخواستهاشون رو گوش میدیم.
And they're saying that
ما
they
کامنت
have received
داشتیم که
comments where the
اکسپرسیو مدیا
commenter
چیزایی که ما
says
میگیم
that you
انجام میده.
actually did
یعنی ایده
what
هایی
I
که بهمون
asked you
میدن
to.
رو
So I had a
انجام میدیم.
previous
واقعا چه
comment
ایده های
requesting
کوچیک،
something from
ایده های
your
بزرگ،
videos,
واقعا یعنی
and then I saw
کل
that
یک
in the
ویدیو
next
ممکنه
video.
حول یک ایده که بهمون
One thing that is very striking to me watching your videos is how you're constantly referencing Iranian or Persian the civilization, right? Iran is the cradle of a very ancient civilization, and you keep on referencing it back to it, and great figures in that civilization. And again, is that deliberate because you're facing an enemy that's, if it has a civilization, it's barely 250 years old, or because I think it's very powerful also that, we get a sense of how rooted the society is in just its own way of living and how much it's contributed to humanity, because you also show this in your videos.
بله
They
ما
have genes that
ژن‌هایی
have been
داریم که از
implemented in
2000
them
سال قبل در
for
وجود ما
thousands of years.
قرار گرفتن.
And for thousands of years, they had satirical
ما هزاران
literature
سال
and they
ادبیات
had
طنز
other
داریم، هزاران سال
literature and commentary
روایتگری
that
داریم.
dates to thousands of years. And so
بنابراین
it's
طبیعیه که ما
important
به
for them
ریشه‌های
to
خودمون
refer to the
اشاره کنیم
roots
و
and
بخوایم
for the
که
audience
مردم
to
دنیا
know
بدونن
about
ما
the
چه
Iranian
ریشه‌هایی داریم
roots
و
and to
بدونن
know
که ما
that with newest
با
storms and
بادها و
challenges,
طوفان‌ها
the
این خاکمون
Iranians
رو
will
رها
not
نخواهیم کرد.
let go of their deeply historical roots.
Have you had any criticism from inside Iran of people who thought that this is not appropriate or this is not the right way of going about communicating the priorities of Iran?
No, people in Iran, they know media very well. They love us. They know they are proud of us, and they know that our work matters. They know media matters. No, they love us.
I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's not only in Iran, of course, that people love you and your work. That's for sure. It's very interesting. There is a lot of criticism of artificial intelligence in the West. People call a lot of what comes out of artificial intelligence slop. On some programs from, Western media, you have been tagged with producing slopaganda, which is a way of, demeaning your work. But I believe that the way you've been able to use AI so creatively makes me think of a process of democratization of narrative warfare tools and weapons, similar to the way that the AK-47 became what was known as the great equalizer, or even the Shahid drones totally changed the face of warfare and gave people who were not from the heart of the empire the weapons to actually effectively fight on the actual battlefield, but also on the now on the narrative battlefield. How do you see this?
Yeah, it's really accurate. As I said before, AI is storytelling, but telling the truth. It's cheap, fast. People can make something to communicate other peoples. It's a people to people diplomacy. So yeah, it's like Shahid drone in the media battlefield. I love that name.
And um, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. I just wonder, how are you organized with the AI in order to produce the videos? Do you have a large language model on your own server? Are you using outside sources? The technology, because the quality that you deliver is so high. It's like this must be difficult to organize on the technological front, no?
No, we use AI models all around the world. We don't have our own AI model, but we can't tell the exact name of them because uh, you should not ask a magician what are the tricks, you know? You just enjoy them.
Absolutely. Well, we are certainly enjoying them, and we before we recorded, we were discussing with Navid, and we said one thing that nobody expected was that Iran would be so effective on the narrative battlefield. And what is even more striking to me is that it's not the Iranian government, but that it should be a kind of grassroots initiative that is really giving empire a run for its money on the narrative battlefield, which they themselves have theorized as maybe the most important battlefield in the way they conduct imperial warfare now.
Yeah, uh, sometimes God helps the front of truth from somewhere who they cannot expect it, you know. We were weak in media. They were very strong in propaganda. They had a historical of lawyers in medias, you know. They 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 have a strong past in propaganda, but God helped us. God inspired us to do this for the world.
One more thing that struck me when I first watched your videos is that I thought, oh, but this is copyright infringement on Lego, right? And then it came to me, no, obviously you don't care because you're at war. Um, would you have done this? Would you have used this means of communication if it was not for the war?
Um, I can say no. We was not going. We were not going to make a Lego video if it was not a war. You know, uh, maybe war uh, can free a potential ability in people when it begins. You know, people in at night, people of Iran are in the streets and they are, you know, saying down with America. They are with us. They are with military forces in Iran. And in day, people say that I want to do something more. I wish I could do something more. I wish I could launch a missile to Israel, you know. And it's our front. It's our battlefield. Um, we could make something great in media, so we created it. It was our ability.
And
One thing that is very striking to me is how this war is revealing Iran as such an advanced society on absolutely all fields. You have, of course, the incredible missiles. We know that 60% of the engineers designing the missiles are actually women, that your level of education in STEM is amongst the best in the world, maybe third or fourth in the world. And we are seeing also the cultural sophistication through your videos. And it's something, I think it's a kind of a watershed moment for people in the West, because I've been an anti-imperialist for decades, right? And I have to confess that I also, for some of those decades, walked around with this idea of Iran as a backward, medieval, obscurantist country. And I keep on being amazed at how much of that propaganda I had swallowed, and at how much the reality of the war and your work is forefront for many people is totally changing my view and Western people's view of Iran, but in a way that that's like makes us question everything that we had been told. And I think that is a major pivot moment in world history, maybe for since Europeans started colonizing the world 500 years ago. I wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
I think God started to giving us gifts, Uh, maybe it's the time for uh, lawyers to be destroyed against the truth. Uh, you know, yeah, I think it's all God gives.
That is, it's very interesting to listen to you, and the way that you think about your work and how it integrates with what's going on in world politics right now, and your work now does directly integrate in world politics. Um, I think from my part, I asked you all the questions I had. Benji, do you have something more to ask?
I don't know if it's a question, but I hear and the spiritual dimension to what you are telling us, and I can feel it in a lot of what Iran is doing, and this connection with God, with a higher purpose, with a higher dimension. I can see how central it is, and I can see also how it is an antidote to what are very, empty spiritualities and empty lives in the West. And I think that is reflected in the work you produce, and I can see that it nourishes this work, and it leaves me with a deep sense of respect for that belief. Although I myself don't believe, and I wouldn't lie about it, but I really sense it, feel it, and I want to say that I respect it, and I think I'm not the only person. It's changing the attitudes about, how spirituality can be a positive force in the world.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you, and thanks God for that gifts to us.
well, then, I would really like to thank you again for taking the time of explaining to us your motivations and thoughts. Thank you also to Navid, our translator, who, by the way, is not in any way, shape, or form connected to you. I mean, this is completely separate, and we are looking forward to the next productions of Explosive Media.
Maybe you can watch it soon, maybe 2 days or 3 days. Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, Benji. Thank you, Navid.
Thank you, Explosive Media.